Abigor is a fun little action game released in 2022 that is heavily inspired by the Souls series.
Please. I'm almost stronger than that old guy already.
Good. Yeah, so look, this thing is janky, but hey, it was made by a group of student developers with no budget. Now, that doesn't immediately give this thing a pass, but the fact that they were self-aware enough to make this thing free certainly helps. In a world where confidence tricksters are able to sell their unfinished, poorly optimized trash on Steam, I've gotta give Crimson Knight Studios some credit for not following this cynical scam trend. Abigor works. There are 3 distinct stages and there's an ending. It also performs a bit better than the footage I'm showing, but only barely. Before someone mentions it, yes, I'm running this on a potato, it's super framey, but I've watched some higher end PC gameplay and it still seems to struggle in parts. Mainly this second area where these folks maybe got a bit too ambitious.
Why bother listening to that geriatric talk when I can actually go fight something?
Are you sure you don't want to, I don't know, maybe try that line again?
Why bother listening to that geriatric talk when I can actually go fight something?
You play as Ulrich, a student at Hogwarts or Alistar Academy.
Of course. There are always demon invasions from time to time.
Shit is going down. Demon shit, right? Because there needs to be some action and you're the chosen one, according to this sleepy headmaster dude bro on Quaaludes.
Well, yesterday seemed to end up much more eventful than anticipated.
Your peers are pretty nosy, and Draco's an idiot who gets himself into trouble for meddling with monsters. What an idiot.
We have no idea how dangerous it is in there, you idiot!
He's such an idiot, am I right?
I can't believe Draco just ran off. How idiotic.
Idiot.
Yeah! And, as it turns out, there's some fun to be had in this boring forest for once. Aw man, I can't wait to see how many demons there are!
We have no idea how dangerous it is in there, you idiot! Get back here!
The voice acting is what made me complete this game in one sitting.
What if we could siphon mana of a strong demon? We could create a strong force field around the school.
It's beautiful and only marginally better than my work here in these videos. My first run through Abigor took about an hour and 45 minutes, and that's including the bit of time it took me to adjust to the inputs. Controllers aren't supported in this early build, but the options promise that they're on their way. I'm not used to playing a Souls-like game with a mouse and keyboard, but it's fine because Ulrich's moveset is relatively basic. There's an attack, sprint, heal, roll, and parry, though I rarely used the latter as the timing never clicked for me. This is largely due to the lack of impact felt when striking enemies. Everything's rather floaty and Ulrich's weapon just seems to pass through the bodies of baddies. It's the same on the flip side. There's a lack of oomph when damage is being done to you that makes it tough to tell what's going on without referring to the health bar. Ultimately, none of this matters as there's no penalty for death. There's 0 currency to collect, and the only upgrades you'll receive are dropped by bosses. When Ulrich perishes, he'll simply reload at the nearest fire pit, no worse for wear. Another sign that these developers recognized how sloppy their game was. It seems like they just wanted you to experience all of the AAA quality cutscenes and see the end. Blocking isn't possible, but you're able to tank hits a bit at the beginning by doing this. There are 3 forms in total, with the other 2 becoming unlocked after beating a big bad. This serpent form is overpowered and is the second skill learned, making the rest of Abigor a cakewalk. None of these are on a timer either, instead they drain while attacking, making the mechanic even more of a generous perk. I suppose you don't have to use it, but yeah, it's way too fun not to abuse. There's also nothing stopping you from simply running through the stages and hammering away at a few of the lesser bosses. Again, enemies don't drop anything useful, so some areas can be skipped completely. In fact, the entire first level can be completed in as much time as it takes Ulrich to sprint from the beginning to the big bad. There's a mini-boss that can be avoided entirely as well. The second area is a lot more restricted, and the third forces you to engage in combat by throwing up force fields that block progression until every foe is eliminated, but overall, the game's piss easy. The final encounter is the only one that requires skill. The blue bar under the life fuels the power-ups. Once it has depleted, you're back to boring old Ulrich and his emo ways.
Of course, sir. I'll head out right now.
What was that? Could you speak up? I like your hair. Swoopy. It's perhaps a bit too easy to refill your power meter. Smashing enemies as pro streamer Twitch star Alric in Mom's Basement form powers up his special, and we all know everyone is special these days. Bottom line, it all boils down to button mashing. Click the mouse a bunch, get that bar filled to the max, then press 1, 2, or 3 on the keyboard for an overpowered buff. It's easy and there's no nuance to the combat, but it's all rather oddly satisfying. The game doesn't overstay its welcome, so it didn't last long enough to become repetitive. There are boatloads of bugs, but they were more entertaining than irritating to me. Sometimes I'd just throw myself into bottomless pits to see what would happen. At least mild-mannered Alric has something to be sad about now. A reason to part his hair that way every morning. Moving around is weird. The controls are responsive, but I'd often get my skinny leather trousers caught on stuff, making it more challenging than necessary to avoid attacks. Fortunately, enemies get snagged on every little thing as well. The odds are even, you mid-90s CG-looking brutes. Hidden pathways, upgrades for health and potency of healing items, lock-on targeting, shortcuts, traps that can be set off to eliminate larger gangs, Dark Souls. A lot of the cutscenes are illustrated by an edgy 7th grader, boobs, butts, and demons. Hey, I can respect that. As a guy who liked to doodle in my high school textbooks, I can respect that. Though I was never lonely or sad enough to draw boobs or butts. Only wizards and demons for this cool guy, but of course I'm just teasing. The boobs and butts and boobs aren't egregious here. I'm taking the piss out of these developers. In all honesty, it's refreshing to see an art style like this. Clearly, it took some thought and effort.
What a treat!
Well done. Speaking of butts, what's going on downstairs, Ulrich? Adult diapers are nothing to be ashamed about. Flat butt pancakes. Hit it, back up, 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 hit it, back up. There's music as well, and while I don't particularly think all of the tracks work with what's happening on screen, it's still impressive that it's there. I mean, look, let's cut to the chase. Abigor isn't a good game. It's sloppy, basic, and mostly entertaining in an ironic way, but I legitimately enjoyed the 2 times I played through it, almost in the same way I prefer watching bad movies created with some heart. To me, there's nothing worse than a creator who's in on the joke. Sharknado doesn't appeal to me in the same way as, say, Alien from LA.
Worth nothing to nobody. Speaking of worth nothing.
I'm sure Crimson Knight Studios knew exactly what they were doing here, but they tried, and more importantly, they had fun.
Well, it seems I owe you an explanation.
These developers should stick to it if they enjoy making games, because there are some solid ideas here. The story's rather bland, but the power swap mechanic is interesting. The second area has a good layout, and the final boss, while clunky in execution, is legitimately well designed. I'll be following this crew in the future. Abigor doesn't get a recommendation from me because it's a student project or in any backhanded way. I decided to review this thing because it didn't scam me. The developers seem humble, and there are things to enjoy about it. As much as I'd like to pat these people on the back in my tiny little corner of YouTube, I'd also like to tell all of you cynical con artists looking to make a quick buck with your unfinished Steam games to burn in hell. A bit harsh, but I mean it. The lack of effort a lot of you put into a product with a price tag, no matter how small, should be considered a criminal offense. It's idiotic.
Idiot!
Idiot. Props to Abigor.
Strange. It doesn't look like taurine, does it?
Now what? Could you speak up? Next time on this channel, more video games, so stay tuned.
What a treat! The Azure Hour may have been ended by a human, but you are part demon. Glorious. I feel as if we have already won the battle. Come, young one. Surely you see the power that your demonic side possesses. Are you sure you want to die on some old fool's errand?
I might be half demon, but I would never work alongside a monster like you.
Quite unfortunate. No matter. In the end, your human side could never best me. Hell will soon be painted with your blood, child. The least you can do is make it interesting.